Thank you very much, Craig. Just quick with his thumbnail, turning it off. I think Janet's trying to catch my attention there. She may have something else she wants to say, and then we'll come over to questions from the floor.
Sorry, this is a quick one. This is about the vehicles and the point that Craig raised about the vehicles going along Military Road. And the reason why I know so much about it is because A, I've become a sado, and B, it's because it affects Project Motorhouse, and as you know, most of you, the frame of that building, the steel frame, is completely rotten and needs to be replaced. And it supports the curtilage of the road. That road has collapsed at one point, okay? So bear with me here. What I was looking into was called Priority Route Networks. And we have two in Ramsgate because of the port. One comes up to the Granville and stops. And one comes through the tunnels. And I looked into seeing whether we could redesignate the B2054, which comes down Military Road, as also being Priority Route Network because it is used once a month when the tunnel is shut. And I was told that would be a huge problem. And the reason being that those arches will not support 40 tons of weight. And a priority route network needs to, a road that is a priority, part of the priority route network needs to have a 40-ton loading. And that doesn't exist. So how the hell do they think that once a month they are going to be able to send all that traffic down Military Road when there isn't, when there's those arches that don't take 40 tons of weight? I don't know.
Thank you, Janet. I think it's worth noting that the reason that the arches are in the use that they are, and the mixed use, which, we've all had debates over and so on. My family business was based down there for many years, and let me tell you, it's not just about the weight on the arches. It's not very pleasant to stand in one of those when you've got a lorry revving its engine, belching exhaust fumes into the door. It's not very pleasant when the sleeping policeman, is that politically correct now? When the speed humps along Military Road mean that 40 tons goes crash and the arches rattle. Why were we given vast sums of money, which Peter, I think you know quite a lot about, for the renovation of those arches, to bring them back into use and to make them suitable to use, to then just destroy them again? They were built in the days when horse and cart they were designed to carry, and it's as simple as that. There's the long-term problem with Motorhouse. It is a complete and utter lunacy, and I think, again, thank you all. I'm going to suggest something, and this is off the cuff that I'm doing this, but in the terms of where do we go from here, I am going to suggest that we reconvene perhaps in 6 weeks. Same venue, we'll book it tonight.
That's Christmas.
Is it?
4 weeks.
4 weeks? If we set another public meeting, but let's set the date now. Let's have some joined up action as well as joined up thinking. I don't know how that sits with Craig and the other panel members here. Yeah? There's a working party, and we would welcome people. If any of you do have professional experience that you feel you could bring to the table, please speak to us afterwards, because we need to reach out for that. But if we book a meeting a month from now, we can then address matters and see how we go from there, yeah? Would that be good with everyone?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll take questions from the floor. I think Davina's on.
The biggest crane in the country is in the port. I didn't mention that, but we know what it's doing, it's repairing and doing whatever. But I heard today what it costs, and Stuart Piper probably knows. I heard today what it costs. £7,000 a day. A day?
Could you repeat the question?
The question, if I can, I'm conscious of my voice being a bit boring, but at the end of the day, Davina is raising the issue that the crane working on berth 3,
The biggest crane in the country.
which apparently is the biggest crane in the country. It looks good fun to drive. Apparently the cost is 7,000 a day.
And it's here for 8 weeks.
Yeah.
So they must justify that money because they've got something else coming up.
We're told that there is expected roll-on, roll-off rate movements anticipated, which in themselves may not be that bad on one berth because it brings some revenue, but is it the tip of the iceberg again?
Larger than the normal ferry.
However, there is a vast amount of money being spent down there, and I suspect that yet again, with no consultation or mention to the public, all members indeed. All members indeed, and thank you for that, Peter, because I think it's all we all do tend to attack all the time, but rest assured, we believe there is a little bit of a, how should we say, a fiefdom or a cabal system operating again, because there seems to be an awful lot of councillors and elected representatives that are not able to represent us because they don't know what's going on. So, anyhow, just please.
I just wondered what the timescale is for the going to KCC and asking about all these.
The timescale is now.
But how do we go about?
Right. The expected decision date for the Brett's application is actually the 25th of November. However, James Bickle, who's the planning officer dealing with it, has asked that submissions are made by this weekend. We have been told two different stories because they say one thing on their website and then they'll tell you another. We were originally told that they would take objections from the public until the day before the anticipated date of decision.
If we get a scary lawyer, how quickly would this need to happen?
Scary law is a different issue because we're challenging the process then, but at the moment we must follow the process that they're asking us to, which is basically that anybody in this room who hasn't already objected, just get your objection in there. By email.
Go on to the KCC website, put KCC planning, go into planning, put comment on a planning application, then put in Port of Ramsgate and it will come up. And you can object there, or what I did is then emailed to the email address which was there. I've done it two different ways. Do it this weekend if you can.
There seems to be some discrepancy about when because again there's discrepancy because due procedure isn't being followed and this is trying to be steamrolling through. It's very difficult to actually put a formal objection together when the framework isn't correct in the first place. So what we would just ask everybody to do is to get on that KCC website. Let's crash their server tomorrow by deluging with complaints. If you would like to know the key points to make to base your complaints on, those points are available on the Nothing Concrete Report Ramsgate site. Peter.
At TDC, planning applications can be called in. Therefore, planning officers cannot make the determination. The decision is then made in public. Does that apply at KCC? So can one of our KCC councillors that represents Ramsgate call this application in? So the officer doesn't make a decision, has not got the authority to make a decision, and would have to be made by the KCC Planning Committee in public.
I thought you were doing an impression of what I said all last week then, Peter. So, hang on, let me answer Peter's question first, please. Yeah. No, in this instance, and this is because they're applying for a certificate of lawful use. This is not a full planning application. What is worth noting is that everywhere else in this country that Bretts have operated batching plant or aggregate washing and handling, they have been made to put a full planning application in. The only site in the UK that Bretts have been able to steamroller it and under the radar is TDC and KCC. Sorry, it's KCC. KCC are the body for aggregate handling. However, we do have evidence back from 2010 that a certain individual who was very close to O'Regan was letting things go on a nod and a wink. Yes, it's that name again. Ron. Sorry, I will come back to you.
I'd like to say many residents here tonight must remember when the arches was all dug up and reinforced with concrete over the top of Military Road. Yeah. Anyone remember? Over 20 years back. They did that. They said the water was leaking through. They wanted to solve the water problem from underground springs. But it wasn't. They was taking 40-ton lorries up there then. So they reinforced those arches. and they will take 40-ton lorries up there again.
At what cost to the rest of the structure though? Because although it may be strong
They go
enough
round
on the top,
Paragon. That's that corner
but
there.
the Paragon's
It's
the,
already fallen once.
That corner's really bad. That's going, that road is really good.
If KCC have got this sort of embargo on the site down there, does that mean it shut the door should someone want a passenger ferry to run from there? Or if
no, but they fully
top-class
expect a
marina-
passenger ferry to come into the middle of a building site, basically.
How about the top class marina? And they've got this huge, great industrial site there.
Ron, you would be showing vision and you know, common sense. Craig's Ramsgate Regeneration Alliance, this has been much discussed, that lagoon there that the breakwaters form. Personally, I'd like to see the whole lot go back to nature because it could ruin the ecology of the bay. But the breakwaters there form a lagoon. What could be better for marine-based leisure, jet skis and so on? The port is not good for building, heavy building on, but there could be low-density leisure and related facilities, maybe small, single-storey hotels and so on. It could be used for any number of very profitable and non-polluting people kind activities, for want of a better description.
Thing. Should we get a bad winter like 1963, that will shut. You won't get any boats in there, not big deep draft boats.
No.
It'll be full of sand. Because the design of the ferry terminal was wrong right from the start.
From day one, Ron, and you know it.
No culverts through, let the tide through thick water agitated to stop the silt. And there's no protection from the northeast gales. Ramsgate sand is all coming towards the ferry terminal, where we are paying £100,000 a year to have that dredged away. I've done a Freedom of Information request. They spent, in the last 7 years, £673, I think.
Which is
6,000.
673,000, which is why they're so desperate, obviously, to bring cement in. This gentleman, by the way, was the dredger master at Ramsgate for years, and he knows that boat. Please do, Ron.
Ramsgate Harbour, the time I was down, I've done every job except the harbour masters. The Invicta landing stage at the end of the pier is now derelict. No more Waverley trips, no more boats coming in taking pleasure trips. Number one
That's a
slipway.
quayside berth, by the way.
Yeah. Waverley used to come in there once, I had a trip from there. Perfect time. Number one slipway, 2 and 3 were built by the Admiralty, smashed up, all the winding gear that was good for another 50 years, thrown out in the salt air, rotting. I don't know what they've done this last week, someone said they'd taken it away.
All destroyed.
A huge great building at the
Historic
top of
England,
number
all
one
of you.
slipway, like a carbuncle, stood up there, as Prince Charles would say. And then, when the hovercraft ran, concreted over the working beach that the fishermen used to put their boats on, that's all breaking up now, laying rock. Then we had the container row boats come. They dug all the big granite blocks up from the bottom of the harbour, pulled them up in the heat and left them. They're still there now. And the row people have gone. They drilled all the nice granite bollards off, snapped them off, got rid of them so that the articulated lorries could come along the crossbar. It's all finished now. The watch house that should have had preservation order on, smashed that up so the lorries could get round. They blocked all the sluices up. The gullies are now full of mud. When I worked for the corporation, we put all new doors and guides and winding gear ourselves because we had the people to do it and the know-how. Now they have to go outside firms to do it. They can't pay for it. Then a bit further on, the Camera Obscura on the West Pier, knocked that down. That should have been preserved. Built port control there, thousands of pounds. After a little while, took it away and put it back on the East Pier. More waste.
It's not a new
Now they're
problem,
stuck
Ron,
for
is
money.
it?
Now the ferries are stopped. They don't know which way to turn for money, so they're trying to get Brits in there. They'll shut the door on a lot of other things if they do.
Yeah, that's
Well said, Ron. For those of you who don't know, this man comes over that harbour and he's worked on the harbour, and I think it was the 40s onwards, wasn't it, Ron? So 50s onwards. That's right. There's a lady there, that gentleman there, he must be getting cramp in his arm, so please. You're next, madam.
Does anyone know if there's any link between Brett's ambitions and the 38-degree petition that went up today regarding proposed dredging of the Goodwin Sands.
The Brett's proposal is specifically for sea dredged aggregate. It must be. Actually, Ian's got something to say. I'll give you a break.
I think it would be very safe to say that the Brett's development will be related to what's going to go in the Goodwin Sands in the next year. For those of you who don't know, you've got a massive expansion of Dover Port beginning in 2017-18. It's a 4-year programme, £200 million of investment, increasing the freight, the passenger ferries and the cruise lines. So it makes you wonder why they even want to touch Ramsgate Port, because it'll never be able to compete with Dover, but that's another by the by. But the way that they're going to construct that port, and there's documents on the Dover Harbour Board website, hundreds of pages long, but the way that they're going to build that port and those expansions is to dredge the Goodwin Sands. And they're going to dredge 2.5 million cubic metres of aggregate material from the Goodwin Sands to make the concrete and everything that's necessary. To use marine dredged aggregate, not only does it destroy the ecosystem and the environment of the Goodwin Sands, and all hell is letting loose on 38 degrees and all the environmental protection societies in this area jumping up and down, and rightly so, because of the damage it will do, and then the marine archaeology. But to use marine dredged aggregate, you can't use it to make cement. You've got to wash it because it's covered in salt. And to clean and wash 2.5 million cubic metres of aggregate dredged from the Goodwin Sands, which is only a few miles away from Ramsgate, you're going to need an aggregate washing facility. You're probably going to need 4 or 5. There's probably going to be some aggregate washing facilities at Dover, and then there's going to be some more at Ramsgate. So I think that's one of the reasons why Brett's have moved in. Brett's are a massive organisation. Let nobody tell you otherwise. It's not a local company. It's one of the biggest aggregate producers in the country. Last year alone, it made 4.5 million pre-tax profit. It's got 30 odd sites in southeast England. It's huge. So of course Brett, and it also does its own marine aggregate dredging. So of course Brett's been very clever business people, want to strategically locate their plan to Ramsgate Port, right next door to where all the action's going to be going on over the next 4 years. They'll make millions.
Ian's just mentioned a very good point there actually, and that's the fact that if you look at Southern Water's water supply maps, we are water scarce. We are extremely at risk, and it's why our local plan is vital that we get it into place, because we're under threat, if you don't know, of massive overdevelopment. There is insufficient water. When the library caught fire, they had to put bowsers down the harbour because the mains would not give the fire appliances enough water to put the fire out, and that's some years ago now. We are water, we're at real risk of this. Where are the millions of gallons of mains water that are referred to in the application going to come from? It's absolutely ludicrous. And again, that's another environmental concern. So if people would like to get onto Southern Water and demand to know where this water's coming from, that would also be extremely helpful. Yeah, there's a lady with a blue there who's popped up and down a couple of times. And then I'll come back to
ask a direct question to Stuart Piper. Why did TDC apply for this funding without asking the public?
Questions to you, Stuart, and the lady says, why did the TDC apply for the funding without speaking to the public? You happy to come up?
Yeah, I'm happy to come up. Thanks for that question. I'm not really quite sure why you think I might be able to answer it. After all, I'm only an elected member. TDC own the land, and I suppose it's a bit like me owning my house. I might have tenants living in my house, but if I want to make improvements to my house, I don't necessarily tell the tenants. I was unaware until we heard at this meeting that application had been made. I don't infer anything by that, except that is an honest answer from me. I don't wish to make myself unpopular here at all, but I, along with all our enthusiasm, we do need to remain on message and actually fight the battles we can win and be more pinpoint accurate with our challenges to whether it's TDC, RTC or KCC. We need to be more pinpoint accurate in what we're doing rather than just throw out masses and masses of objections. I am aware of some £600,000 which is being spent on one of the berths at Ramsgate Port because I was specifically asked to approve some additional spend. The assessment has been done by TDC, the landowners. There is one of the berths that is crumbling and falling apart, and whatever you do there, whether it's passenger ferries or speedboats, that berth has to be repaired. And please, may I advise you that the £600,000 that's being spent on that berth is absolutely necessary, regardless of what they then go on to do. So we have to be careful and accurate with our challenges to them, and I genuinely hope you didn't mind me saying that to you this evening. The berths are being repaired regardless of what the future holds, because if they don't, they will crumble, they will fall into the sea, and just as none of us here will allow that to happen to our own homes, TDC cannot allow that to happen to the port if they intend to make good use of it, particularly with passenger ferries, which is still a genuine hope on the horizon. Thank you for the question.
Trish, please. Yeah.
I don't think he answered the question.
Well, I think he did answer it in as much as he doesn't know either, which speaks volumes. Trish Hartley, please.
I was just going to make exactly the same point, actually. We have an issue in this area about the information that goes to our elected members. This has come up over Pleasure Army
Or lack of.
other things. We appear to have a group of officers who go ahead and do their own thing. These guys and their colleagues are supposed to be the bosses of those officers. When I worked in a local authority, I wouldn't have got away with just putting in applications right, left and centre without getting them checked and approved. We really have an issue. Well, it's great to have Stuart and Peter here, but I really think what we need to be sending them away with from this meeting is our wish that they should, as our elected members, take some control over this. Absolutely.
Absolutely. We we're not going to let this become a political meeting, but what there is a very, very real wrong, we believe. We have senior executives of that council that think they are a fiefdom and will do whatever they like. And it's about time. Again, the only people that are going to hold them to account are the elected members supported by us. We must work together.
It's disciplinary, John. It needs to be made disciplinary.
We need the advice and the input of people like yourself, and there are other ex-LGO local government officers in the room that we would like to consult with, because I think that as a team we can actually help the elected members hold these people to account, because they have been running wild for far too long, and enough's enough. So if you are an LGO or a lawyer or a relevant experience, please send it to us afterwards. Gentleman with glasses.
I've been waving my hand for a long time. Patience, Anne, patience.
Sorry, Anne. You're next. Gentleman with the glasses.
Tim Garber, I stood as MP to stop the pollution, stop the corruption and stop the construction, and I'm standing for KCC leader next year in May, so I'm completely opposed to this. The first I've heard of it was on Sunday when I saw this meeting's poster and the RTC proposal. This feels really, really fishy. It feels like something big is going on. The BBC News I saw tonight, just by accident, didn't just mention the Brett activity, didn't just mention development at the port. All of that's massive by the sounds of it. it mentioned at Manston huge warehouses as well, and also a 300-metre tower. This goes back to O'Regan, that type of proposal. It also goes back, some of you will remember Chinagate, with the massive warehouse development there. And there's also at Pegwell Bay, still going through consultation, the Nemo pylons that's as tall as the Shard, that none of us have ever approved or seen anything of. And we've also got down at the port and the harbour, the only royal harbour in Britain and listed, Grade 1 listed. We've got the destruction of the slipways that the gentleman mentioned. I don't know how that's crept back in again, because it was a cafe, then it was a Hornby centre, and then it was a porthole restaurant thingy. Well, Jack's back. Jack's the builder. He's going to take control of that area, and he's going to build something. And that's what we're getting with Brett. But it's much, much bigger than we've all realised. None of us ever heard of this. None of us have ever approved it. None of us want it. But here we are yet again. And it comes back to our councillors, it comes back to the MP. We pay these people to make sure that we don't have to do it for them. Well, hell, we're all going to do it tomorrow, going to get onto Natural England, we're going to get messed about by KCC, we're going to get bounced around by someone else. We need to make sure this doesn't happen, not this time and not again. And that comes down to P45 reform with the civil servants, and it's voting out and getting rid of our councillors because they're incompetent. Our MP, bless him,
Not all of them.
Big Chatham, he's got
Not all of them. Thank you for your point. Let's keep it sweet. So let's keep it sweet. Non-political, and you're next. The lady who's not Sorry.
Port of Dover. I was under the impression, having read recently in the papers, that because it was finally designed as a burial ground from what happened during the Second World War, they couldn't go dredging. So if Brent is trying to get aggregate from the Goodwin Sands, maybe we could get again with the people that have been fighting for stopping the dredging in the Goodwin Sands for the Port of Dover. And then the more of us we are, the better we get.
You're absolutely right. I think it's worth noting that the 38 Degrees petition has had over 10,000 signatures at this afternoon. It is being posted and shared, and in fact I put it on the Friends of Ramsgate Seafront this afternoon, which is why I know the numbers. It is a separate issue. The permission that they're going for that, and that I believe 10,000 signatures means it's got to be debated, if not referred. I think we may need some more. But again, please, 38 degrees refers to the critical point of an avalanche at which it slides, and we all need to put our weight on it. So, please, Craig.
Just wanted to make a point about the use of our port. And I said at the beginning of what I said earlier on, was we seem to be at the back end of every rough old trade that seems to come our way. And that rough old trade, one of them, which requires some serious discussion about what is our port going to be for, is of course the live animal export trade, where we got the scruffiest ship probably ever designed for the open sea, in scruffy conditions, doing a trade that none of us want. And for that reason, I've listened to what you've all said, and listened to Ian and his excellent campaigners, and I've got a second reading of a bill in Parliament this Friday to change the Ports and Harbours Act. And I'm hoping it will get a fair wind and will go through, and that would allow a local council owned a port to actually exempt that type of trade at their discretion. And I'm pretty sure that discretion locally would be, we don't want it here. So it's another step to stop this type of trade.
Thank you, Craig, and that does answer that there are people actively, there are councillors here this evening, we've got our MP here this evening. This is not just us and them, this is about getting rid of the rot, but there are some good people around, and we must respect that, please. Right at the back, I can see a hand waving just about. I must get my lenses updated.
Will there be
to contact on your site?
Yes, they're already there. There's a pinned post at the top, and it will give you heather.twizel@naturalengland.org.uk and so on. No, they're all there listed for you. The only thing, pick out the points that are relevant to them, and keep it. You can keep it concise and refer to the fact that they are already aware of the many issues of the community and the legal points. You don't have to go into a great long list. Becky wrote a superb letter that I think is so comprehensive that if we just say what Becky said, you'll be fine. So.
Not word for word.
Who are you pointing at? Lady at the back there, please, in front of Andy.
I just wanted to say I do worry if the reason that the other Brett sites have planning permission is because they came in before the law was changed on planning and relaxed so ludicrously for permitted developments to apply, which have got such minimal criteria. Was it the case that all of those other plants existed and got permissions before this relaxation came in? And if that's the case, then if we are technically down to, and we shouldn't be technically down to anything, because this shouldn't be the way that life should be with your councils and Kent Council, as us the residents and business investors and everything else around here. But if it comes down to technicalities of the fact of whether it meets the criteria for permitted development, I hate to be depressing, but I so hope that Janet is right about 15 metres, because what I feared about that, I don't know to what extent the industrial permitted development differs from the domestic one, but I do remember helping somebody who was outraged with an extension under permitted development to do with residential, to discover, and I can't remember exactly, but it was something about the height didn't include the roof. The maximum was actually not including the roof. That didn't count. And I know that certainly parapets and things like that don't count in terms of height now on permitted developments. So residentially, if it's the same with the industry and they're going to say no, that's a protrusion in the chimney with safety railings around it and it doesn't count, then that one might not work. And the other thing that totally depresses me is that left just, does it materially affect the appearance of the premises, which as it stands is just going on the subjective opinion of a planning officer, and I don't quite know where he was walking around Ramsgate to decide it didn't, but that I thought, well, there's no definition of appearance in there, so if you look at that as saying, does it make much difference to how the site appears, that you can find it that it appears very ugly, i.e. in appearance, but appears can also mean it appears noisy, because it will be. It appears to look like a factory, which it will do, because it will look like an open production line, and that maybe we could get them on that criteria for permitted development. But having heard tonight about what's been going on with Thanet and Kent, that it seems to be a positive strategy and policy to make Ramsgate into an industrial zone, I don't think they'll be listening.
Then it's up to us to make them listen. It's up to us to make them listen. I take on board about permitted development. The legislation has been around for a while. I can't quote whether the other Brett sites were established. I believe some of them will have been after permitted development. However, whatever the precedents on those sites, this is our fight. This is our fight. We will have to segregate various aspects of it, but be aware, please, that Natural England, whilst they can take our observations on the application or the application for lawful use for the aggregate washing and processing, they cannot make comment on the batching plant and what's already there, because that's already there. However, we can take it to the Environment Agency with the evidence, for instance, of Janet's...
And I've already done so.
No comment. Well done, Janet. That's the thing. What we have to do is deluge these bodies so that they are well aware, because although it sounds like rabble-rousing, we're not. But look at the impact of Natural England Craig, I didn't know, had written to the Chief Executive, but with our MP writing to the Chief Executive and the volume of objections from us, people power is forcing democracy. They have had to put back the deadline for it, and let's keep that pressure up, but let's pile it on more and more, and let's get the message out there. And I'm sorry at the back there, it's very dim from here, so you're not being ignored. John Walker would like to say a word, please.
Thanks, I'm sorry my voice is shot to pieces, but there's just 2 points I want to make. First of all, this matter of whether the application being a certificate of lawful development can be called in by the members. We were rather told that it couldn't, but I'm not so sure about that, because I think, well, I know of a case in Canterbury, for example, where an application was made for a certificate of lawful use. The parish council objected and got the local member at the city council to get it called in, and it was called in, and it was discussed at the committee meeting. So I think the President, it can be called in, and I think our county councillors should request it to be called in, and if they say it can't be, they should state what their reasons are.
Charlie Thompson has written Trevor Shonk a long letter,
Yeah.
the head of KCC Planning,
Yeah.
telling him basically to get lost. He can't be called in.
Well, I've seen that they can be called in, and I think to be honest, councillors at KCC could call it in if they were so minded. They've just got to be told to do it, basically. Yeah. The second thing is, we heard earlier, just 2 points, John, if I can. Second thing we heard earlier, both from Craig and from Ian, that what we need in Ramsgate is our own community plan, a plan for the town that the community feel that they could support and so on. Now, such a plan is being worked on, actually, because under the Localism Act 2011, parish and town councils have the right, if they want to exercise it, to produce their own, what's called a neighbourhood plan. And Ramsgate Town Council have decided to do that. And about a year ago, those of us who are part of the team that are working on it, we have to get it registered with Thanet District Council, which we did, and they have to approve the boundary of the neighbourhood plan, which they have, and it includes the whole of Ramsgate. So we've been working on this for about a year, and the areas that are going to be covered are the economy, the built environment, open spaces, traffic and transport, all those issues that we're very involved in. And part of our coastal communities bid, which Craig referred to, we put in a sum of money for a proper consultation process to do with this plan. And if we get that money, and we'll know, I think, towards the end of this year, we'll be doing this consultation early next year, and I hope you will all engage in it, because it's your plan, it's up to you to say what you want. And the council have to take into account when they determine planning applications. So you have the opportunity now to do something about it.
Thank you, John. There's some people with cramp at the back there, but I'd just like to point something out that, with regard to calling it in, Stuart, who is, well, I'll let Stuart explain what he's done, because he has demanded in writing that this is called in, and if it's possible within the legislative framework.
Well said. Well said. Yeah, I have formally requested of both our KCC representatives that this is formally called in. I was advised it didn't qualify because of permitted development. I have not accepted that, and along with Peter Campbell, we are both of the same mind. I have formally requested it be called in, and I'm waiting to hear whether or not they're going to acquiesce to my request.
I think that, again, it's important to know that apart from being here, there are a number of councillors that are aware of the concerns and are supporting the community. I think being here tonight speaks volumes. Gentleman right at the back, before your arm drops off.
I was going to ask two questions. One about the scary lawyer. I sent an email to James Bickle, given the ambiguity of the legislation of planning permissions and responsibility, whether he'd taken legal advice on the matter, and if so, whether he would share that legal advice. I've yet to hear back from James Bickle, but I think that if he hasn't taken legal advice, that is potentially something that could be acted on legally before the decision.
That's a very interesting point, and whether the advice is external or from KCC's 151 officer, so that probably needs clarification as well, because legal advice from within I have my own views on.
Secondly, it strikes me that it's just struck me following on from such matters, which is that if you do work for if you are a council official, be it a KCC or a local council or a town council, you have a responsibility to advise your elected members when they should consider consulting the public and involving public consultations. And I was thinking that's something else that ought to be followed up with James Bickle and the planning, KCC planning, to ask them to release what advice, if any, they gave their elected members who they're responsible to on such matters, because it must be available on freedom of information and nothing else, so there's no reason for us not to release it.
The question has been asked, whether it's been asked formally with an FOI, I don't know, but having said that, it will be going off as a freedom of information request tomorrow, because there was a statutory consultation period, and again, without being political, and we don't always agree, but we've got Peter Campbell to thank for flushing this out, because otherwise this would have gone by under the radar, and the first any of us would have known was when the plant arrived. So, very good point. Let's get down to that, because what we can't have is a re-election next year of any individual that's let this community down and put us in this situation in the first place. Or indeed any local government officers from town level upwards, because there's things being looked into there. Rebecca, sorry. You said they're all quiet.
No, just a small point. Well, it's not really. It's a case of 200 metres. But my understanding is that Janet and Becky live probably within 300 metres.
Yeah.
Yet their application for this use of development is for within more than 500 metres. And I've spoken to somebody today who dismissed that. They're not here this evening. And to me, that again is something that they could be considered deceitful in their application. So we perhaps need to find someone that can measure that as the crow flies, so that we can...
Would that have been an elected member or an officer or somebody?
Yes.
Really?
Yes, but they're not here today.
Well, they wouldn't be, because that's misfeasance, which is a criminal offence. So let's have a look, shall we?
As I say, they felt that it was over 500 metres. That's all they said. They said they didn't think it was 300.
I spoke to an elected member the other day and told him that we were gathering, without being corny, concrete evidence, but I advised him in the interest of transparency that Janet had got cement dust and so on, because they claimed to have visited the port and found nothing. His response was, I don't think so. So I said, well, we have concrete evidence, and all he kept saying was, I don't agree with you. So, heads will roll, truth will out. Look out for the hashtag truth will out.
That's at one end of the Western Undercliff, and this is from the other end.
Have you got video evidence, Janet? You know, so somebody in the newspaper beside you and saying where you are all the time.
This is why, and sorry to cut in, Janet, this is why I believe our litter pick and clear up on Sunday could be most enlightening. And please, if any of you are available, good little plug for the Ramsgate Society, because they started it, not me. But we'll be convening at the clock tower at 10 o'clock, and everything you need will be provided. Could be a nice little Sunday walk in the rain or the sun. But I must just say, just quickly, before we've got one or two going, Margarita, while we've been talking, has managed to rebook this room for the 1st of December at 7 o'clock. The bucket's at the back. Have you got the bucket? Put the bucket round. Go on. Right. Anybody further questions?
Is there anybody in the room who has already complained officially about the batching plant, about the cement? You did. Great, George. Anybody else who complained about the batching plant before the recent events? No. Okay, just me then.
Well, we did.
Oh, we did?
Yeah, you did.
Peter and I did, but...
So, are you going to set up a inviting fund account that we can find for donations?
There will be. We visited.
We're in the process of setting
We're in the process of doing that. We visited the bank yesterday, but there may be an existing account which will enable us to start gathering quicker. That's where, if you've left your details with us, we'll update you, and it will be also published online on the Facebook page. And as I say, I think we need to put a web page up as well, just for information. Thank you for your time, everyone. If any of you have got questions that are unanswered, please come and talk to us afterwards. Okay. However, this room is booked for the 1st of December for a follow-up at 7 o'clock. Thank you very much.